we are like a successful studio and we've been around for a long time, but that doesn't mean we're like always booked consistently. Like we're still having to work for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
not
I mean, I
just, it
think
doesn't just fall in our lap all the time.
we're really good about just pushing forward with our
Yeah,
marketing and what we're putting out on social media. Like, just because we're continuing to market really strongly, doesn't automatically mean we're not having some challenges, behind the
right.
scenes sometimes.
Welcome to Spill the Tea. We're Cass and Amanda. We're the co-founders of the creative studio Foxtrot Branding.
In these episodes, we share about navigating our lives as designers and business owners and the challenges and rewards that come up along the way.
So today we're going to be talking about how to survive tough times in life and business. I think this is going to be a really helpful topic just with everything that's going on in the world, especially in America, and how that affects being an entrepreneur, and also how do you deal with life and just personal things that kind of may throw you off when it comes to business, and how do you manage that when you work for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's kind of just universally in our community. We've been hearing a lot of designers are going through some tough stuff in addition to ourselves. So it felt
Yeah.
relevant, it felt right, and hopefully it will be, helpful, at least just to hear that other people are experiencing some tough stuff along with you, if that's the case for yourself too. And before we dive in, we do want to remind you that if you enjoy this podcast, we really appreciate it if you could leave us a rating or review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you could give this video a like, that really does help us out a ton.
So, what's the tea at Foxtrot? Let's start with that. Let's do a little update on things, and then we'll dive into our topic, which I think it'll be a natural progression because a lot of what we're talking about, what's been happening at Foxtrot, is directly related to our topic today.
Yeah.
So, you want to start us off, Cass?
Yeah. So we didn't post a podcast episode last month because things got crazy. Basically, I had a sudden death in my family. My mom passed away in January, which was just really shocking and overwhelming. And I was just out dealing with that for pretty much a month, a little bit less. And Amanda really carried while that happened, which was just amazing to have a partner, who could help
Yeah.
do that in business.
Which Cass
Yeah.
has done for me before too. I want to say,
Hmm.
like, we've both had the opportunity to do that for each other, which has been like honestly like life changing to be able to have that support. And
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a huge difference. It's given
yeah.
me a whole new level of empathy for, just people in
Mm-hmm.
general that have, losses in their family, but especially business owners because, you don't have built-in bereavement time with
Mm-hmm.
when you run your own business like you might at an employer. And it's hard both ways, whether you
Yeah.
are employed or you work for someone else. But yeah, that was basically what I've been dealing with for the past month. And obviously, like, it's still affecting everything in my life and affecting my ability to be full-time back at work. But um, yeah, I don't like what do you say? Like
Yeah.
it was a very life-altering month for me. And yeah, it's kind of just been affecting everything else. But I am feeling like it's March now, the beginning of March, and I'm feeling ready to come back and do a podcast and I don't know, just slowly reintegrating back into everything, but kind of taking it slow.
Yeah. Kind of taking it day by day for sure. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like, which I don't want to like speak for you and your experience, but I think thinking back to my own too, like there's going to be days where you feel like you can work and like be like a normal person. And then there's days where you're like, I just cannot. Or like
Hmm.
you have like very real like logistic things you need to go do, because you're
Yeah. Yeah.
still dealing with like the aftermath of all of that and how that impacts your life and your family and all of that. So on top of all the grief, it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. It's been a crazy month, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll kind of talk about how that leads into like just some of the other difficult things that I know a lot of other designers have talked about that they're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with right now. And I know, this happens to everybody at some point in their life. But so we'll kind of get more into that. But what about you, Amanda? How's your life been at
Yeah.
Foxtrot, especially without me, for a little bit?
Mm-hmm. I know it feels weird to talk about my stuff because it's like my life is like doing like I'm doing well right now, and it feels like such like a a strange contrast to, you know, to what you're going through.
Yeah.
But I know, like, yeah, we all have like our different seasons in life. Like, I've had really hard, difficult times too, you know, and it's like, it's just the phase you're in, and this is the phase I'm in. Luckily, I'm glad that we're not both in a terrible
Yeah, I
phase
was
at the
gonna
same
say, like,
time. Can you
I'm glad
imagine?
you're
Our
doing
business would not
relatively
be
well.
running if we were
Yeah.
both going through hard stuff right now. That'd
Yeah.
be insane. So I'm so glad that, you know, we have had each other, and at our difficult moments, the other person has been able to like carry the weight for the company, you know,
Yeah,
which
it's
has
like
been
a
great.
true partnership in that way, like, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's business partnership, I've experienced similar things, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
my partnership with my husband too, you know, hope most of the time
Mm-hmm.
you balance each other out, which is nice.
Right, because it's like you're never going to be able to provide like 100% each person. So it's like you kind of like help. I don't know how to word it, but you kind of help like just pick up the slack, you know, where
Mhm,
the other person just can't provide in
mhm,
that way,
yeah,
and that's something we're both like totally happy to do for each other, you know, obviously, like in any situation that is needed. So
yeah,
so in my life, I mean, I feel like things have been pretty good recently. Like, I definitely like burnt out last fall and winter. I was having a really difficult time. So I think now like my focus this year is like, let's make sure that I don't get to that point again, because it was like really bad.
yeah,
Like, I laugh now. It was not laughable then. Um I was trying so hard to like be in a good place. So I was just like mentally, like, I was just pretty down and stuff.
mhm,
Because I think like work got kind of stressful for a point there. I was trying a medication for ADHD that just like didn't sit well with my body and that kind of thing. So now I've been just really trying to focus on doing my best, but not overdoing it, which I think could easily happen in a time where you have to step away from the business and I'm doing a little more work. But luckily, I think this like past like couple months this year haven't been too overwhelming. And I've also just like set different expectations for myself. Like, I'm not going to be able to do 100% my job and 100% your job while you're gone too. It's like I'm just doing the best that I can with the energy that I have. I'm not trying to overdo it. I'm not trying to burn out. Like, I'm
yeah,
trying to really take good care of myself. And I think part of that has been just in like maintaining my routines and doing things I enjoy too. Like, I'm in the 6-week pottery course, which like honestly has been really helpful because I have friends in that class too. So it's been really nice to have that kind of grounding activity that's like I'm doing that every week. I'm making something with my hands instead of just on the computer. So it feels more
mhm,
real. It feels more like nurturing. It feels like I have like community and friends around. So I just feel like I've been able to like maintain like a better level of like happiness and energy, and been able to do okay in the business even when you're not
yeah.
here, you know?
That's a
So
really good point about resetting expectations because we had some very ambitious plans and, like, we had a
we
big meet.
always do. That's our
Always,
problem.
yeah.
We're always trying to do everything, and we're like, but we can't all the time. So,
Yeah, we were, like, really maxing out on all these refreshes and things we wanted to do on our New Year's to-do list, basically, and we
mhm,
were kind of, like, getting through the majority of it, and then everything happened for me, and I had to take a step back, so I think we've definitely just had to release a lot of these goals we had for at least specific timelines that we had them on,
mhm,
and reset those expectations because like, you know, life happens, shit happens. You can't always just keep pushing for the same plans you had. So we've
mhm,
reset those. And I think that's important just emotionally to let ourselves be like, that's okay. We're going to get to it at some point. But right now, we're just going to navigate the here and now and lower our expectations in some areas and also set some new baselines for success and happiness, which is probably a good thing to like come back and do regularly just based on how things are actually playing out. And I love that
yeah,
you're doing like your pottery class. I've been doing, or I had a knitting class, and I'm hoping to start like a knitting group out of that. I think that is so important to leave that time for creative energy and then also connection. And if you can do both at the same time, I think that's essential, especially just considering how dark things are politically in America right now and with everything going on. Like, I really appreciate when people talk about and align with when people talk about how important it is to have community events. And a lot of times it's going to be like crafting stuff for me personally, because that's just what I'm interested in. I think a
mhm.
lot of
And probably our
people,
audience too, just being creatives in general. It
yeah,
seems like a lot of us are very like multi-passionate. Like, I want to do all the crafts, you know? I want to do
yeah,
everything.
yeah. I love knitting, crochet, art. I don't know. We both are so similar in that way. If we love to dabble and all this
Mhm,
stuff, I'm sure, you know, both us and anybody that's listening or follows us, we all have like extensive craft collections of
Yeah.
all the crafts we've tried to do over the years. But yeah, I think that's been something I'm trying to prioritize as I can, is just keeping those creative hobbies and connections with people, because I really think that is going to, or that can carry you through some really hard times, and as things just feel like they're going to get even harder, you know.
Yeah, so I think on kind of that same thought of, what's going on in the world, what's going on in America, the kind of like sense of like impending doom kind of thing that's I think a lot of us are feeling.
Yeah.
Which I also know that a lot of our community is feeling too. We have a lot of designers we're regularly talking to in our in our DMs and stuff. And recently we were posting on stories about how we had kind of a dry spell of inquiries at the start of this year. I think we only had like one new client inquiry in like between January and February, or whatever that time slot was we looked at the other day. And then all of a sudden we had like a bunch, and we had like 4 sales calls last week, and so we were like really hoping that those go through. And so anyways, I had posted about that, and I was like, wish us luck, after this dry spell. And then we had so many people responding to that like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see that it's not just me who's having a dry spell. And so that kind of just spurred this conversation of like, why do we think that is? What's going on? Because historically, like the start of the year had tended to be like a fairly busy time for inquiries for us. So we're like, that's kind of weird. What's going on? But honestly, I think it's because of like the political climate and the economy. Like I think people are like, everything is super expensive. Businesses are kind of holding on to their cash a little more. I think we're all kind of holding our breath because it's just like, what's going to get shut down next? What's going to happen next? Is my friend, is my partner, whoever who isn't in my design industry and not an entrepreneur, are they going to lose their job? Like, it's just, there's so much going on. So I think in times of like instability, I think people are a lot less likely to spend their money, especially when things are so expensive. It's harder to want to like say, yes, I'm ready to spend, $3,500, $5,000, $10,000 for a web or brand design project, right? Like I think businesses are just holding on to their money a little more. And it does seem like maybe now with like the new season, I think maybe there's a little bit of renewed energy going around. I think politically still things are like insane, but maybe people feel like they can like breathe a little more after just like the insane quickness of just all the things happening in January. So I think it was just helpful for designers to see that like it's not just them. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not getting client inquiries right now, or if they've been slow. There's nothing wrong with you. It's likely what's going on just around us in the world. I hope that helps to hear. But I think there's also, that kind of leads us into like talking about our topic today. Like, what do you do in times of stress and struggle, or like whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in the whole world, like how you're feeling emotionally. Maybe you've had a loss recently. Maybe your sales are down. Like, how do you manage? How do you survive through tough times in life and business? So that's what we want to talk about today. We want you to know that like it's not just you. You're not alone. Even though we've been in business for, we're going to be hitting our 7th year this fall. Like, we still have slow seasons. We're still struggling occasionally. Like, we're still going to hit burnout sometimes. As much as we try our best, it's still, sometimes things are just out of your control.
And I know that we're not alone in that. I know other businesses of the same age, or even a little bit beyond that, are experiencing that too, which can be hard, because I think I have a mindset of like, well, the longer you're in business, the more stable you should be. And in a lot of ways we are.
Yeah.
And I think there's truth to that. But also just in entrepreneurship and running a business, things change so much and evolve so much, especially when the economy is really unstable and unpredictable. And also there's just so many ways that it's like, yeah, you've been doing really well for X amount of years, but throw in these changes and that can really change your current setup, and you're going to have to probably like evolve it to continue having the level of stability and success that you've had, which can be exhausting. And I think that's something we've heard people talking about in some of the communities we're in, of like, I've been doing this for so long, or like for X amount of years, and it's gone pretty well, but like I'm tired, just because like it is so much to keep up with, to always evolve, to always be trying to stay on top of trends and the economy. And you just can't stay stagnant if you want to continue to be stable and successful. I think a few like other specific just kind of struggles that we've heard in some of our communities from designers are feeling either like feeling like they don't have a good balance of the amount of hours they're putting in at their business versus the income that they're making versus how they feel emotionally. Like, I think those are the three big things that
Mhm.
really help you feel secure and content with a business. And it's so hard to find the balance of not overworking, but having, a solid stream of bookings and projects going to where you're financially consistent. And then also feeling like emotionally fulfilled and happy by it. And I don't think you can find a
Mhm.
perfect balance all the time of those three things, but it's hard when one feels like really out of whack.
I think that's kind of just the nature of like anything that you are monetizing, I think is not always going to be perfectly fulfilling.
Yeah, for
And maybe that's
sure.
kind of a bigger topic,
Not
but it's like
under
in the
not
world of,
capitalism.
yeah, like under capitalism, like I don't think that, like, I think we try our hardest to really make it be like my dream job. And in many ways it is, but it's also a job. It also is just work that I have to do. Like, I have to work to make money. And I'm so glad and so lucky that, like, we're able to do it this way and do it our way. But it doesn't mean that it's always going to just be easy either.
Mhm.
But of course, like, your goal is to make it like be the most supportive to your life and your needs as possible. I think another big issue we see in design communities that we're a part of is that, uncertainty and inconsistent work is really stressful for a lot of people, which understandably so. I think there's ways to help mitigate that a bit in business. There's different strategies, there's different ways to really prioritize like recurring revenue, which, side note, that's actually something like we're going to be part of a summit that's launching later this month, the Simply Profitable Designer Summit, and it's all focused on like recurring revenue in your business. So I think if you're interested in learning more about that, that would definitely be really helpful for you. So definitely check out the show notes. We'll have links to the summit there. It's a free summit for designers. But it seems like that is just like a really big issue that a lot of designers face, whether you're newer, whether you're more advanced. Like, we all have to constantly be chasing revenue, right? So if there's ways that you can build up like a more supportive cushion with any kind of recurring revenue, or if you can find ways to help just kind of like track your revenue and like predict your income, that's something that we're going to be talking about at our session. I think that can be really helpful and really supportive for a lot of people.
Yeah, just to balance things out. So it's not like
Mhm.
you're either feeling really overwhelmed by the amount of inquiries and work you have, or you're feeling like it's crickets, trying to even those two out so you feel a bit more balanced in your
Mhm.
workload. Something else we've seen designers talk about, which is very relatable, is just feeling some creative frustration and mismatching with the type of client inquiries you're getting, or even the type of clients that you're working with, just based on what you need to take on for your workload. Maybe it's not like a perfect project, but a lot of us, I think, feel like um, we're seeing a lot of clients who need something with a really quick turnaround and they have a really low budget. That's like kind of a common thread we've seen some inquiries of, and then I know other designers have too. And that can be frustrating when you feel like it's just not the quality of leads that you're looking for, but it's like, well, I need the business, so I'm going to try and make this work. It's what's in front of me right now.
I think sometimes it's like it's important to look at that and see, okay, is that a result of like what's going on in the world, or is that a result of like my messaging, my content that I'm sharing, that kind of thing? So I think we've had a mix. Like, we're getting
Yeah.
like regular inquiries too, and like really good fits, but then those
Hmm.
people still kind of trickle in. But I think if in your business you're like only getting the low budget inquiries and never anything that you're really like wanting to work on, then that might be something just to look at and make sure that your messaging is clear, make sure that your portfolio is attracting the right people, that sort of thing. Because I do just want to be careful that it's like you're not always like trying to blame an outside source.
Yeah.
But I also want to recognize that there are outside factors that you can't always control. Like, you can't always control who is finding you online. We get lots of different types of inquiries, whether they're finding us on TikTok versus Instagram or versus Pinterest, like very different. But you just want to make sure you're kind of covering all your bases as a business owner. But sometimes you can do your best and have the best messaging, and it could just also be that people are spending less money right now. That just might
Yeah, just the
be
environment
the
is causing
the
people
reality. Yeah.
to have a lower budget and to feel more panicked, or like,
Mhm.
I think we've seen a lot of people making rushed decisions about
Mhm.
things because they're feeling like, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. This feels like a big risk. And then when they decide they are going to do it, they're like, all right, let's just do it right now. Like I need it. Like there's just not a lot
I
of,
think people feel a lot of pressure too with like
yeah,
just I think it's just the vibe of the the world right now, the vibe of the country. They're like, well, I need to make money. I need to make this happen.
yep. It's all
And
very high
then they kind of
stakes.
put that like, yeah, they put that energy onto you as a designer sometimes. So that's something we're trying to like keep an eye out a little bit onto, because that's something that typically has been kind of a red flag in the past. You can kind of see sometimes in potential clients if they're like a little too hasty. That's not
Mm-hmm.
always the best fit, but it's not all people like that. But
Yeah. And I get it. As a business owner,
it's like you
things
want to
are
make
hard
things
right
go
now.
fast. You want it to, yeah, you want it to pay off, but they need to do a little more planning too.
Yeah. I think and just another common struggle that I've seen just in my life, and maybe it's like recency bias, but with other designers too, is just general burnout and like emotional exhaustion due to
Hmm.
whatever factors in your life. I think because things feel hard economically and really scary politically, that makes your capacity to deal with other emotional issues just lower, and it's easier to feel overwhelmed by mental health stuff. Like maybe you're just having a really bad bout of depression or anxiety right now. Maybe you had a loss in your family or your life. Maybe just like your life is exhausting. Maybe you have kids, that you're trying to take care of, or you're caring for a family member or a friend. I don't know. They just, the normal emotional things that happen in life can feel more overwhelming when you're also dealing with all these other pressures in your business.
Yeah, I think that makes like running a business harder too. And it's like you do have all that emotional weight on top of like already like running a business is a big responsibility. So it's just, yeah, it can easily like be this like pressure cooker of like just too many things weighing on you.
Yeah. And like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, I have a whole new level of empathy for business owners that deal with a loss in their family or become caretakers. Like I've stepped into a caretaker role in my life. So yeah, I have a lot of respect, especially for those that have children. Like that is just
Hmm.
that's a lot. And that's a privilege that me and Amanda have had. We've had a lot of privileges, one being, being in a partnership, having each other, but then also we haven't had, kids up until this point. For me personally, I've had my husband who has had a full-time job and has insurance, and that is a huge deal for me, to have that support. So
Hmm.
we definitely have had a lot of privileges.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads us into, I don't want to just linger here on all the hard, sad stuff. I do want to share some like what are some
Yeah.
solutions? How can you help like care for yourself, care for your business, find the support that you need? Honestly, one of the most important things, the first thing I want to mention is just the importance of not comparing your business to someone else's because you
Yeah.
have no idea what is going on in their life. You don't know the kind of support that they have, what privileges that they have. Do they have a business partner who's also splitting the work with them? Do they have a husband or wife or partner who is also supporting them financially? Are they working full time or part time? There's a lot of agencies you might see online who it looks like they're a big agency and it might be one person working part time and they just put out amazing work. Like you truly do not know how their business is going, how they're running things, and what is going on in their own personal life. So I think it's so important to not compare yourself. And I think that's why it was like maybe surprising and slash helpful for like people who messaged us, after sharing that story about like we've had a really like long dry spell. They were like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's not just me. Because I think we are like a successful studio and we've been around for a long time, but that doesn't mean we're like always booked consistently, like we're still having to work for it.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah. I
not
mean, I
just, it
think
doesn't just fall in our lap all the time.
we're really good about just pushing forward with our
Yeah.
marketing and what we're putting out on social media. Like, no matter what's going on behind the scenes, we're going to be putting out content and like showing off our work and letting people know like what our bookings are, because that's just what you have to do as a
Hmm.
business. But that does sometimes give the illusion of like, oh, they're super successful right now. But just because we're continuing to market really strongly, doesn't automatically mean we're not having some challenges, behind the scenes
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think that's important to mention too. Like, it doesn't, because I still feel like even though bookings have been low, I still feel successful. Like, I still feel like we were able to pay ourselves this month.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's good. Like,
Yeah.
we were, you were able to take off time. That's a great success. Like,
Yeah.
I was able to help support and bridge the gap a little bit. That's a great success. So it's like, I think the business is still successful just because we have a slower month doesn't make it unsuccessful. But yeah, I just want to reiterate again, just please don't compare yourself to other companies, other business owners, other designers, because you just really don't see the full picture.
Yeah, it's cliche to say that we all have our own metrics of success and nobody can define what success is to you. But I mean, that is a core truth
Mm-hmm.
that what success is to you is going to be fully unique to your situation. So do be intentional to set those success baselines for yourself. And like we mentioned, evolve them. If
Yeah.
your circumstances change and you need to pull that baseline down a little bit to be like, I'm paying my bills, I am fed, and I'm able to like do some creative things and hang out with my friends. And that is my
Mm-hmm.
baseline for like success
And
in
like
my
that
life
is
right now.
enough. That
That's
is great.
awesome.
I'm happy right now.
I
Like
think
that's
that's what
fine.
most of us want right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my big mission this year has been like, how can I simplify my life? Like, how can I simplify it so I can maintain this like good baseline of health and
Hmm.
happiness and success for the business, you know?
We're going the opposite of like hustle culture that was like 10
Yeah.
years ago, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's like, how can I like really take good care of myself
Yeah.
is the culture.
I think another thing that's important to focus on in terms of surviving hard times and just having some solutions that will make it easier and help you keep progressing is just having systems in place and having communities for when times get hard and maybe you can't give your business 100%. Not everyone is going to be able to have a business partner or most people that's not the situation like me and Amanda have, but there are absolutely ways you can set up systems in your business so that if something comes up, it's not all just going to like fall apart or you're going to be like set back really far by it. I think it's important to have some relationships probably with like contractors um, for situations where you might need to have somebody help you in a design project, like maybe help you get through a design project that you've already booked, finish it. Also, just have like design friends and connections that you could refer people to. If, for example, if you needed to pass a client on to somebody.
Yeah. I think in our situation, when, your life stuff happened, you had to take some time off. We had to kind of figure out a few project schedules and I think that was really important for us to not feel like you had to like come to work and do it, you know? Like we're like, no, I think we need to look at this from a different approach. Can we, how life or death is it that this client launches on this exact date? Could we
Right.
message the client and, ask for a week or two extension? Or could you look out for support for one of these websites you were working on? So I think like having that like grace for ourselves. And I think you even kind of still put a little bit of pressure on yourself sometimes too. You're like, I'm so sorry. I feel like I can't like help out with the business stuff. And I'm like, you don't need to. Like that pressure's not there. You don't need to be doing that right now.
Yeah, you definitely don't
Um
put that pressure on me at all. I just
yeah,
it
but you
feels
put it on
weird to
yourself
fully
because
step
that's just your
back.
personality sometimes is like you feel like you have to like always be doing everything like or like I don't know, you have this big sense of responsibility, which is great.
Mhm.
But yeah, like so I think my advice to like other designers, even if you are like a solo designer and you do not have another, teammate or whatever on your or like co-founder or anything, it's still so important to be flexible with yourself and like give yourself grace and like you don't have to be like as stringent as maybe it would be if you were to work at like a big design agency or for any other like corporation who probably doesn't have your best interest at heart. Like give yourself, I think, like the love and care that you need and you deserve in like tough times like that. Like if you cannot work, you deserve to give yourself like some space. Like can you ask, like it's really not as big of a deal as you might think it is to ask a client for an extension and double check with them on the timeline. Most of the time in our experience they're
Mhm.
pretty chill. Maybe
And
it's
you know your
different with your
clients, like
clients.
you know
Yeah.
the priority that they have, so you can use your
Hmm.
wisdom there to like figure out which timelines you
Yeah.
might need to move. But yeah, you should
Hmm.
definitely move something if you have something huge and urgent come up,
Yeah, like
like we
if you
did.
need to have time to grieve, like find a way to give yourself that time. I think you deserve that care for yourself.
Utilize the flexibility that is built into this business path that you've chosen to
Hmm.
take. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of other situations as well, like, designers who you get sick, but you feel like, oh, you have to power through the sickness, but like I've had friends recently who like got sick and they're sick for like 2 weeks, and it's like, that's exhausting. And that's really hard to do that plus work. And it's like, I get that like you work for yourself and you can work from your computer, but it's still work. And
Mm-hmm.
you'd probably recover better if you took a little bit of time off and let yourself relax. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think it's so important to really honor like what you need,
And set up
physically,
systems and
emotionally, spiritually.
yeah, and set up things that have them in place so that like when something like this does come up, unfortunately it is going to come up. I feel like an insurance salesman saying that, but like
But it's the truth.
as someone who just experienced that is fresh on my mind, like something is going to come up. So do move it to the top of your to-do list to set up systems or whatever it is that you can put in place to make it easier when and if something like this does happen. Because I know we have so much shit on our to-do list and like that might not feel important, but let let my experience kind of spur you on to set those things up so that you're more prepared and it's easier when something like
Mm-hmm.
that does happen, even if it's just getting sick like you said.
Yeah, maybe like we could share some ideas of like what those things to set up might be, which I
Yeah.
know we have kind of talked about this in another episode about like uh setting yourself up for like time off, like vacation wise, but maybe like what are some other ideas of things people can do in like a tough life situation or tough business situation, like say you're sick or lost in the family or whatever else it is that's kind of holding you back from working. Like I think having like a list of all your existing clients is really helpful because you can like send like a mass email to them, let them know that you're out of office. That can be really helpful. You can also set like your auto send, email, what is it called? Your email responder, have it like on auto with like a message that you're out of office and when you'll be back. What are some other things that you think would be helpful?
I would say working with a few contractors, like having a few
Right.
contractor connections, even if you like don't feel like you're ready to hire out a lot of work right now, probably just have a few people come on a few projects with you, whether that's for project management or design help, because it could be so beneficial to have anyone to reach out to
Mhm.
in a time when you really need help. So if you have no connections, it's going to be a lot harder. So maybe just start working with a few, see, just as an experiment. It doesn't have to be long term, but make a few connections, join groups of designers, whether that's like Facebook groups or Slack groups. All of our courses have a Slack group associated with it, and they're all really amazing designers. I think we're all pretty similar just in terms of personality, and we all have different goals and types of businesses, but there's a lot of great people there who are super kind and supportive, and we're there as well. So I think that's important to do, to join those groups.
I think there's also some longer term things you can be doing to always just have some kind of like extra support or cushion in your business. Like I mentioned earlier, just even having like just diversifying your income just in general, I think is really helpful
Yeah.
because if you can rely a little bit less on having to like actively have projects going, if you could have some type of other income, whether it's like monthly maintenance packages for your web design, always having that revenue coming in,
Retainers.
or retainers, yeah. Or if you have some kind of product you're selling or workshop you're running or whatever it is, like if you have other income rolling in, affiliates, that's another one, that can really help a lot. And we always say, like, we're always like, oh, this is only like $100 here, $100 there, but like every little bit adds up. And at the end of the year, a few extra hundred every month adds up to a few extra thousand. And that might be the difference between like making your revenue or not, your
Yeah.
revenue goal or not, is what I mean.
Or like
So
having to
I think
go a
that's
month
really
without a
helpful.
paycheck or not.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I think it's really important to just like have that kind of stuff just consistently rolling. So if you don't already have anything in your business that is bringing an income aside from direct like client projects, I would start brainstorming that like now. Like I would
Hmm.
start building that because even if it's slow and growing right now, by next year, that might be something that brings in an extra like $500 a month for you. So that
Yeah.
can be a huge difference and a huge benefit to your life and your business. So I would definitely recommend brainstorming something along those lines.
Yeah, and if you're looking for ideas for recurring revenue, definitely recommend the Simply Profitable
Mm-hmm.
Designer Summit that's coming up. Again, we'll have the link for it. It's a free summit. There's going to be a lot of great speakers covering a really wide range of topics. So you're not going to be able to go to them all, but there will definitely be a few that stand out to you and will help you, I think. Just come up with some great ideas for recurring revenue that you might not have thought of. We're going to be talking about the profit planner that we use for recurring revenue. We're going to show you the whole spreadsheet system that we use. That is our profit planner. I think that's going to be a cool and unique presentation, not a style that we've done before, to do a full demo of the planner or any kind of product that we've not done that before. So I think it's going to be really cool. And then if you sign up and you decide you want to get what they call a power pack as an upgrade to your free ticket, that's a collection of a bunch of resources that all of the speakers have donated a product to. Basically, that is
it's $5,000 worth of products.
Of courses,
it's a huge
templates.
collection.
Yeah. It's a really good deal. So
and
we'll put the link.
And that's a great way too, because you mentioned you won't be able to watch all the videos, right? Because it's every day there's tons. But if you upgrade to the power pack, I believe you get lifetime access. You can watch all those at any time. So that's definitely worth it too, I think.
Yeah. Obviously, we're pushing this because we're speakers and we want you to attend it. But
it's a summit that we used to attend before we ever became
I watched the presentations from
too.
other speakers too, especially on this topic of recurring revenue. I think that is something literally everyone is trying to get more stable and expand into. So if you want to sign up for that summit and get your free ticket, there's a link in the description of this podcast episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the video description, and you can get that. But I do just want to say, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, if you're listening and you felt like anything we talked about resonated with you, or if you just want to share any strategies that you've had, if you've gone through a tough time where maybe you had to take a step back in business and something that has made a really big difference for you, please leave a comment on the YouTube video, or you can leave a comment on the Spotify episode too if you're listening on Spotify. But we would love to hear from you. I know other people would love to just know that they're not alone too, as we're all trying to survive these tough times in life and business, because it is really important to feel like we're all in it together as a community of designers and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think we're also really trying to engage more with our community, at least on Instagram especially. We have our close friends list that we're always growing. We try to post more of kind of the behind the scenes stuff, or what's really happening in our business, because it's stuff that we don't necessarily want to share right out there on stories to potential clients, all the time. So if you are a designer and want to be a little more in the know of what's going on, or how we share stuff like that, we're having a slow time, and we'll share responses that we get from other designers. So it's just nice to have that little group there. So if you want to join that, you can follow us on Instagram at Foxtrot Branding, and occasionally we'll send a post where you can like this to join it. But if you're not on there and you want to join, just send us a DM and we'll put you on the list.
We'll add you. Okay, we'll wrap it up there for this episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know this was a little bit of a heavier, I don't know, not the most high energy conversation, but I think it's really important. And we really appreciate you guys listening to the end. So links to everything we talked about, as well as links to our website, will be in the description for this episode. And if you have a question for us that you want us to answer on a future episode, feel free to send us a DM on Instagram, or leave it in a comment. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.